Hey, Record Living friends, this is Brian from Tokyo Record Style. I am dispatching from Tokyo, Japan, where I have said that I have been living for 20 years, but actually this summer marks a special anniversary for me. I got out my old passport here. It's been stamped out so I can no longer use it, and I found some old passport stamps, an old picture of Brian, 20-something years old, and it's cool. It's filled with stamps of lots of places I've been around the world, and one of the stamps in here, the very first visa I got in Japan, and you will see that that says August 18th, 2004. So, depending on when you're watching this, I am celebrating 20 years in Tokyo this week. This is a very special occasion for me, and I thought I would mark the occasion by making a YouTube video and putting forth a vinyl tag, something I've never done before, the 2024 Japan vinyl tag. Now, I realize not everybody in the vinyl community will have Japanese records or be familiar with Japanese records, so I've tried to create a list that makes this vinyl tag accessible to everybody. You needn't have a Japanese record to join this vinyl tag. You needn't be steeped in Japanese or Japanese knowledge, and it's Japan themed, but it's not specifically required that you have any Japanese records or know much about Japan at all. But Japan does inspire the world with its design and culture and history and cuisine and so many other interesting aspects of the culture. And it has a substantial hold in the music world, specifically in the record making industry. Lots of us have Japanese pressings. Japan's pressings are arguably high quality, well taken care of. Record shops are world class, and the level of mania in the collector world is second to none. So I started collecting records before I came to Japan, and I've slowly but surely expatriated all my records to Japan, at least the ones that didn't get culled along the way. And since I've been in Japan, I've been record shopping all of these years and discovering something I didn't really know until recently, and that is that Japan might be like the best place in the world to shop for records. Okay, it's fighting words, I know, but it's a pretty darn good place, and if you've ever visited here, you can probably attest to a bit of truth in that. So, like so many of these things, I went a little overboard. I've got a little cheat sheet here for myself, written a short little novel here to help me through the selection of 20 topics that I've made for the Japan vinyl tag 2024. Don't feel obliged to make your own Japan vinyl tag, but I wanted to commemorate this moment, so I'm doing this for myself. If anybody out there wants to take a stab at it, I know we just had the summer tag 2024, but I'm just going for it. Inspiration hit, this was the week to do it, so I'm going for it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1, Obi One. Let's start with the Obi, the famous Japanese Obi. Show me a record with an Obi. Now, if you don't know what an Obi is, Obi means sash in Japanese. Obis are what go around the kimono. That's the Obi. It means belt or sash. And the purpose of the Obi is to tell the consumer the name of the album, the artist, tracking information, price, and other marketing details. It also adds a nice aesthetic to the record, and all the designs are quite different, and some of them really go for it and are quite beautiful. And it's a distinct feature of the Japanese pressing, the Obi. Now, I'm not a diehard Obi fan. They're quite cool. In the 70s, lots of the guys famously just ripped off the Obis from all their old records. But if I can find them, they're cool to have, but they're not deal breakers for me. So the record that I'm going to show you with a Japanese Obi is my first up, the debut solo record by Nico, Chelsea Girl. Now, you'll notice the blue Obi here. It's not particularly special, but what makes this story a little bit fun is that I heard this playing on the house system at a local record shop, and I thought, oh, this would be a great record to have. And I went to the record shop owner and said, hey, is this record for sale? And he said, yeah, it is. It's 3,000 yen, which is like 20 bucks. And I was like, okay, I'll take that for 20 bucks for sure. And as he took the record off the turntable and started to put it into the sleeve, he found the missing Obi inside the record. That was the thing people did. He said, oh my gosh, I found the Obi on the inside. I've got to raise the price. And I said, oh, come on, man. But I just can you honor the price? And he didn't really know what to do. But in that moment, rather than burn a chance to, make some money flow, I just agreed to pay a little bit more, hopefully make a memory with the guy, and so that he would remember me. And of course, German supermodel Nico from the album Nico and the Velvet Underground. She sings a handful of songs on that record, got put together by Andy Warhol. She is in one of his movies called Chelsea Girl, which I just watched not too long ago, and it's quite a bizarre, interesting art house film from the 60s. It was fairly well acclaimed, and Nico has a small part in it. It's of its time, but an interesting film, and Nico is featured in it. Interestingly, Lou Reed, Sterling Morrison, and John Cale all play on the record, as does Jackson Browne, who wrote a couple of the songs on here, as did Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan wrote one of the songs on here. However, the Velvet's charming drummer, Mo Tucker, did not play on here because there are no drums on this record. It is said to be something of a Baroque folk record. And Nico is prominently featured in a lot of Wes Anderson movies, which I always love. So there's my number one. Show me a Japanese Obi. Bonus point, try to decipher one of the Japanese characters on the Obi. This says Cherushigaru by Nico. Ni means two, so Ni has two lines. And if you don't have a record with a Japanese Obi, don't worry, you can still play Show Me a Record with a Cool Insert. This one's not that interesting. Okay, number two, show me a Japanese band or artist. And if you don't have a Japanese band or artist in your collection, then show me a non-Japanese artist who references Japan or Tokyo in their album or song. I am going with Sheena and the Rocket Channel Good from 1981. This is a new wave rock and punk band from the early 80s. Sheena and the Rocket no doubt gets their name from the Ramones. Sheena is a punk rocker, and their album Rocket to Russia. This is a fantastic record from the 80s. This band is from the island of Kyushu, and they are important because they are part of the Mentai rock movement. Mentai is a kind of cod roe, fish eggs. Mentai is a little spicy. It's said that spicy energy could be found in the music of Mentai rock. It's just a funny name that they gave to a bunch of bands that came from Fukuoka who all shared this sensibility of Western rock and roll, British punk with a Japanese sense. I'm failing to remember if this is their first, second, third, or fourth album, but it was produced by Haruomi Hosono of YMO and Happy End and beyond, and it stands out as one of their best records, along with Vacuum Pack, which I think is their second record. When the Ramones came and toured in Japan, Sheena and the Rocket opened up for them, I think for 20 shows. And when Sheena and the Rocket came to America to do a 20-show run, they opened for Elvis Costello. I'm embarrassingly forgetting the name of their singer, but they have a female vocalist up front who was one of the first female rock and roll singers in Japan and was made fun of for her high-pitched voice. But artists like Deborah Harry of Blondie and the Strawberry Switchblade Gals proved that this kind of singing resonated with fans, and credit Sheena and the Rockets to part of their vocal sound. I love the photographic imagery on this record. It's really cool. The insert also has the other two band members. Really cool lo-fi black and white images. And yeah, if you love the Ramones, then you're probably going to love Sheena and the Rockets, so you should definitely check them out. And they've got a big discography. So that was number two. Show me a Japanese band or artist. If you don't have a Japanese band or artist, show me somebody who sings about Japan or alludes to Tokyo or Japan in their music. Next up, number three. Because Japan is the land of the rising sun, show me a record that would be the perfect soundtrack for watching a sunrise. Music for a sunrise. Could be about new beginnings, fresh starts, new hopes. I am going with also Sprach Zarathustra, also known as 2001. Dun, 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 dun. That's the one. Dun, 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 dun. This is by the Berlin Philharmonic, and it is intense. It is a very amazing piece of music. It's about 30 minutes long, conducted by, I always say Karajan, but I recently heard that I may have been pronouncing his name wrong for many years. Herbert von Karajan. I think in Japan they say Karajan. Somebody help me. I don't think it's Karajan. It's got giant timpanis and huge horn sections, and it's a bit much for a sunrise, but really cool. I love to listen to classical music in the morning. This is a little bit of an intense one, but for the actual moment that the sun came up, this would be a really killer version. But I also pulled up Deodato's Prelude. Yumir Deodato, who was a legendary pianist, organist, and composer, put together this really cool fusion, samba, funk version of Also Sprach Zarathustra on this record. It's like a funky jazz version of it, and it's really, really cool. And this record can be found anywhere. I actually have 2 copies of it, and my second copy of it has my own Tokyo record style co-op Obi on it. I took part in a community record store in Tokyo, and as a gag, I put my own Obis on all the records that I was selling. This one didn't sell, but it says here, 1973 CTI Records. This is a groundbreaking fusion album that'll melt your mind and groove your gears. Legendary Brazilian keyboardist and arranger Yumir Deodato puts jazz, funk, and orchestral music and potent acai berries into the blender. What comes out the other side? Musical brain food. Richard Strauss's Also Sprach Zarathustra, aka 2001, has never sounded so good and earned Deodato multiple Grammys. This should be in every music lover's collection. Also, Sprach Zarathustra is inspired by the Nietzsche piece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Jeez. The beginning of the piece is actually called Sunrise, and it's meant to symbolize a new dawn or an awakening, which is probably why Stanley Kubrick used it in 2001 at the beginning in the ape scene when the apes finally figure out how to use the bones as tools. A new awakening of consciousness. And maybe when the sun comes around one of the planets when they're in space, it's the dawn of a new era. It debuted in Frankfurt in 1896 and was conducted by Strauss. A very interesting fact. Dun 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 dun. Number 3, Land of the Rising Sun, a song or album to watch the sunrise to. Okay, number 4, city sounds. Whether it's Tokyo, London, New York, some albums just have a city vibe. So share a record that transports you to an urban area for a city vibe. I am going with the 1979 masterpiece by Yellow Magic Orchestra, aka YMO. Solid State Survivor. Dun, 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 dun. This is the groundbreaking record by the trio that brought you really the beginnings of electronic music. Haruomi Hosono, Yuichi Sakamoto, and Yukihiro Takahashi, and their lovely friends. This record blew my mind when I first heard it. I can't believe how great this record is. This is another record that should be in everybody's collection, and they pressed gajillions of these. You should be able to find one anywhere in the world. If you don't have any Japanese records, this is the one record that I would tell you to get. There are other ones that are a little bit harder to find and rarer, like this one over my shoulder, Yude Men by my favorite Japanese band, Happy End, who also know who started that band too. But this record can be found anywhere. YMO are one of the most internationally acclaimed bands from Japan. Maybe they flew under your radar, but if they did, now is your time to get caught up. If you love electronic music, if you love disco or boogie, if you love music from the 80s, these guys pioneered the sound of electronic music. This is a super groundbreaking record. This record stopped me in my tracks, and I got this record record when I was listening to it one time at my really dear friend Tabo's bar, super secret cool record bar in Tokyo. Nobody knows about this place. And it was playing on the Tao system, and he pulled it out and said, whoa, yellow vinyl. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And he was like, you know what? You love this record so much. I'll get another copy. Take this one home with you. I think maybe he made me pay like $2 for it. And you used to be able to get them everywhere. The price is going up. There's still enough stock for you to get this for relatively reasonably priced. Doesn't matter which pressing you get. Just get this. Solid State Survivor. The standout tracks are Riding, Behind the Mask, Technopolis, YMO's Solid State Survivor perfectly captures the vibe of Tokyo. Hugely influential record. I can't recommend this record enough. Pioneering record that has influenced tons of people. And I gotta give an honorable mention to Beastie Boys' Hello Nasty, which I don't have on vinyl. I got a whole bunch of their other albums on vinyl, but sadly, I do not have Hello Nasty. Why does Hello Nasty get an honorable mention for number 4, City Sounds? Because of the tune Intergalactic. Killer electronic hip-hop tune with a video that is only second to Sabotage. They recorded a hilarious, awesome Godzilla super monster video in Shinjuku Station and on the streets of Tokyo, and it is so fun. I wish I could have watched that being made. I wasn't here yet. This is from 1998. I arrived in 2004. This was kind of the last BC record that I bought as it came out. It's got a little 2001 thing going on too. Killer record, and Intergalactic perfectly captures the vibe of Tokyo too. So that's number 4, City Sounds. Next up, number 5, Zen Listening. Show me a record that quiets your mind, that gives you a sense of inner peace, that makes you feel like you're meditating at a Japanese rock garden. I am going with Miles Davis's In a Silent Way. I bought this February of 2001. I think this was the first Miles Davis record that I ever got, and I think it was the only one that I had for quite some time, and this is what I knew Miles to be. I love this record. When I want a quiet, peaceful time, or if it's late at night and I don't want to disturb others, and I want to have a deep, intentional, musical, appreciating experience, I reach for this record. Now, I'm not a Miles or jazz expert, but I think this is a departure from the 50s. This is right when he started getting into an electric sound, his fusion sound. Critics were divided over this record, and at a time when people were moving away from jazz, there were detractors who complained that Miles was moving into a rock territory. But this record really defies genres and categorization. It really stands on its own, and it stands the test of time. This record is as impressive and listenable to me 25 years ago as it is today, and to so many people around the world who deeply love this record, who identify with it as a emotional, evocative, personal, quiet, introspective piece of work. The famous rock critic Lester Bangs said about this record that it was transcendental new music and that it was deeply emotional and original. It also has an insane lineup. Wayne Shorter on sax, John McLaughlin on guitar, Chick, Herbie, and Joe Zawinul on electric piano, Dave Holland on bass, and Tony Williams on drums. Holy moly. What came immediately after In a Silent Way was Bitches Brew. And if this represents some crossroads between early Miles and fusion Miles, then I have to say that I caught him at a crossroads and I do not want to leave. This is the record that gives me peace and quiet. This is my quiet record, aptly named In a Silent Way. Number 5, Zen Listening. A record that gives you peace of mind, like the zen of a rock garden. Okay, number 6. I'm calling this one Go 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 Godzilla. A record in your collection that emerged out of nowhere and destroyed your entire world and all your conventions of music, leveled everything and gave you a whole new sense of musical appreciation, leaving your understanding in ashes, leading you to a whole new way of thinking. Go Go Godzilla, the destroyer of your perceptions and expectations of music. I am going with Italian stoner rockers Godzilla Was Too Drunk to Destroy Tokyo, who I just saw on their Japan tour. Sarah, Alessandro, and Nico, these guys are animals. Really amazing three-piece outfit, heavy-duty punk rock, stoner rock, just a cool, heavy band from Italy who came and recently toured Japan, and I scored one of their latest releases, Evil Lord. Now, I'm not a big metalhead or black metal or doom metal or thrash metal, but this really isn't that. This has a lot of intricate musical proggy guitar in it, but it's really heavy. Sarah is the singer, Nico is the drummer, and Alessandro is a shredder of a guitarist. I felt it had a little bit of Zappa in it, a little bit of Alice in Chains, little Nirvana, little Stone Roses. Oh, here's the set list from the Godzilla show. I saw, oh my God, it was so loud. It was so loud. It was awesome. It's always cool to get a set list after the show. And as you might guess, despite the title of the record, Evil Lord, and this shredding raccoon on their cover, these are the three sweetest, loveliest musicians. They really made a mark on me, gave me a refound appreciation for stoner rock. So had to put them into Go 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 Godzilla, an album that totally leveled my expectations of music. Another band that I want to give an honorable mention to that also gave me a whole new perception, destroyed my interest in gangster rap and old school hip hop, were the Pixies. I discovered the Pixies at about 13 years old in Phoenix, Arizona. I stayed with a friend of mine who was like a big punk rocker, Dead Kennedys, Butthole Surfers, and I heard this record there, and I had never heard anything like this. This opened me to a whole new world of listening, a milestone, a crossroads, a turning point. This record blew the doors off of my ears and off of my mind. After I heard this record, I stopped watching MTV. I started digging deeper. I started going to the indie record stores. I started talking to the record store owners. I started getting recommendations from friends of friends, and older brothers and sisters. In 1989, it really blew my world open. Frank Black's lyrics led me to surrealism, to film noir and cinema I would have never seen before, to avant-garde. He talked about religion. If the man is 5, then the devil is 6, and the God is 7. These blew me away like maybe a John Lennon lyric blew you away when you were that age. But it really also couldn't be more hooky. This is a pop record. You'd be hard-pressed to find somebody in my generation from any clique that wouldn't love this record. So many killer tunes. Wave of Mutilation. There's a radio mix that was on Pump Up the Volume, really cool one. Bleed. Here Comes Your Man. Do-do-do-do-do-dum. This monkey's gone to heaven. Mr. Greaves, gouge away. You can gouge away. Oh, great record. This is a Lonely Island record. If the house is burning or flooding and I can only grab 5 records, I'm grabbing the Pixies Doolittle. Okay, so that is number 6, Go 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 Godzilla, a record that leveled your musical ideas, expectations, and sent you on a new course. Had you running for the hills. If you have a better way to articulate these themes, by all means, leave a comment and maybe I can adjust them in the show notes or propose your own. Okay, number 7, ahead of its time. Share a record that was ahead of its time, embodying the spirit of innovation and creativity. Much like Japan's influence in technology and design, this album feels like you're looking into the future. Because I'm first and possibly the only one up, I'm claiming it for my own Japan vinyl tag, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. Man. What can be said about Sgt. Pepper that hasn't already been said? I can't say anything else about it. We love this album. We all agree this is one of, if not the best album of all time. I certainly am of that thinking. Huge cultural moment. Summer of Love, 1967, British psychedelia, one of the most innovative albums in musical history, light years ahead of its time. I wish I could have been there when this record came out. It's the entire human experience and the entirety of humanity in music form. Words I've written down. Youth, culture, fashion, drugs, mysticism, optimism, avant-garde, vaudeville, circus, Indian, Western classic, innovative, extended forms, experimentation, and on and on and on. I mean, the design of this record is killer. I have a couple of versions, some with posters, some without. I'm not sure which version this is. There's Sgt. Pepper himself. Of course, this came after their beloved Brian Epstein died, and Paul sort of took the reins of the band, decided they could reinvent themselves as Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. They could no longer play live concerts, so they went into the studio and virtually never came out until they played that wonderful rooftop concert. I will just say that when I got these speakers, my Kef LS50s, this was the first record that I put on, and it sounded like a whole new record. I heard all kinds of things in it that I had never heard before in all my listenings of Sgt. Pepper's, which has to be countless times. But I found all kinds of new little accents, nuances, little flourishes, all tickling my ears in a way that I'd never quite heard before. Really nice speakers. No matter if you have a hi-fi system or not, this is nice, but it's not that hi-fi. But you ought to own this record. I don't need to go through the song list. I mean, Sgt. Pepper's, Lucy in the Sky, I Get By with a Little Help from My Friends, and the best song ever written in the history of the world, ever, A Day in a Life. An album way ahead of its time. Okay, one honorary mention I want to give to Tom Waits' Swordfish Trombones. I love this record. This was my first Tom Waits record. I've gone on to since collect all of Tom Waits records, but this was the first one. And just like that Miles record, I kind of came to Tom Waits in the middle of his career. After all the early jazz club, Nighthawks at the Diner era, and him just coming into this timeless American treasure. And that's why he's been disqualified for this category ahead of its time, because this record is really out of time. You could put this record on today and it would go head to head with anything interesting that is being put out right now. This record stands on its own. It is out of time. So it gets an honorable mention from 1983, from the Ireland years. Swordfish Trombones. What a record. That was number 7, an album ahead of its time. Number 8, Take a Walk, Man. If you could record one record onto cassette and carry it around with you in your classic Sony Walkman, what would it be? Share an album that's the perfect soundtrack for walking through your neighborhood, with a rhythm that puts a strut in your step. I'm going with Fish frontman Trey Anastasio's 2012 release on ATO Records, Traveler. This record is sublime. It is so good. You probably have never heard this record, and you need to go listen to it immediately after this video. This record has a little something for everybody. It has a shimmering soundscape, co-produced in part with the guys from The National. It opens with a killer track called Corona. It goes on to a really cool song called Land of Nod with really funky tubas on it. It covers the Gorillaz' Clint Eastwood. It's the perfect album for out walking in the city with some music in your ears. Bump, 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 bump. It has a really nice groove and a variety of styles, and it never stops. It's got really beautiful artwork on it, and it actually came with a 7-inch. It's also pressed on this very beautiful orange clear vinyl. And the 7-inch songs are Greyhound Rising and Traveler, the title track, which is so good. And there was one more single release from this record. Scabbard is on the A side and Pigtail is on the B side. This was a really cool extra that came out at the same time on Red Wax. And great record, 2012. Take a Walk, Man, a record that you would want it in your headphones. Feet on the street, out the door, strutting your stuff. Okay, number 9, in the same vein, I'm calling this one Bullet Train. What album has an unstoppable groove that drives you down the tracks like a bullet train? Share a record that makes you feel like you're speeding down the tracks with no intention of slowing down. I am going with 1968. Taj Mahal, the Nacho Blues. Chicka 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 chicka. What a great record. I am a huge Taj Mahal fan, have a bunch of his records, but I really, really love Nacho Blues. This is the one that opens with Good Morning, Miss Brown, and directly into Karina, one of the best songs on the record. Got a girl! Followed by I Ain't Gonna Let Anybody Steal My Jelly Roll, Going Up to the Country, Done Changed My Way of Living. And then side B, you've got the killer tune, She Caught the Katy, and Left Me a Mule to Ride. I think the Katy is a train, which is why I had to pick this record. There's some old train from some old Western story. She caught the Katy and left me a mule to ride. Taj is just one of the most soulful, cool cats of all time. Some of his band was from Tulsa. Born Henry St. Clair Fredericks on May 17th, 1942 in Harlem. He was from Harlem. Influenced by his father, who was a jazz pianist and composer, and his mother, who was a gospel-loving teacher. Adopted the name Taj Mahal after a dream, signifying his reinvention as an artist. He played piano, clarinet, trombone before shifting to guitar, inspired by blues legends such as Muddy Waters, Lightning Hopkins, John Lee Hooker, opened for Otis Redding and the Temptations. Disillusioned with his band, he went solo, releasing 3 key albums, Taj Mahal in '67, The Nacho Blues in '68, and Giant Step in 1969. Love me some Taj. There's a quote out there by Taj where he talks about this album is perfectly enjoyed at the end of one's day. Come home, relax, and let this music straighten some things out in your head, which inspired number 19 on the Japan Vinyltag. So wait for that. Okay, number 10. I'm calling this one Lost in Translation. Inspired by a feeling of exploring a foreign land, share an album that makes you feel like you're in a different world. It could be in another language, but it just should evoke a sense of wonder or discovery. I am going with Masayoshi Takanaka's 1981 masterpiece, The Rainbow Goblins. Holy moly. This record will take you to another dimension. This is like Zappa meets The Love Boat meets The Never-Ending Story. It is a suite of songs that coincide with a children's book called The Rainbow Goblins. Maybe you know this story. It is an instrumental record with narrated sections with guitar virtuoso Masayoshi Takanaka, who before releasing tons of solo records was in the Sadistic Mika band. He's the guy with the surfboard guitar, amazing guitarist. And this follows a children's book that was written by Count Ulderico. I believe he was from Portugal or Spain. The story is well known around the world, but I didn't grow up with it. But its author, Derico, was also a lead artistic contributor to The Never-Ending Story. And he also drew the clouds for Flash Gordon. It's the story of these 7 goblins who are each named for the color that they are. And they eat rainbows. And they hear about the Valley of the Rainbow, where all of the animals and plants live in harmony and who have never met color-eating goblins. And the goblins make their trek across the land to the Valley of the Rainbow, and they want to eat rainbows to their heart's content. And so they come to the valley, and the plants and animals are nervous, and a giant thunderstorm comes, and they dream all night about the rainbow that they'll eat the next day. And the flowers and the animals conspire together to try to protect their rainbow. And they manage to work together to drown the goblins so that they won't eat the rainbow. And the rainbow, so grateful and happy that the denizens of the Rainbow Valley rewards them by turning them into colorful butterflies and moths. And so all the plants and animals and rainbow agree that to avoid the same fate of the color-eating goblins, no longer will the rainbow ever touch the ground. The story of the Rainbow Goblins. And the music is so cool and interesting. It's really progressive and heavy and composed and intricate, and any appreciator of musical prowess and expertise will appreciate this record. Takanaka is an incredible guitar player, one of the best in Japan, and this is one of his earliest albums from '81, shortly after he left Sadistic Mika band. Interestingly, the story has inspired other musicians, and most notably for me, Primus. Primus did a record record 2017, I want to say, called The Desaturating 7, and I just found it for really, really cheap in Shibuya, so I'm going to go pick that one up tomorrow. I don't think I've ever heard it, but I'm a big Primus fan, so excited to get that. But I'm really happy to have this one in my collection. If you don't know about this record, the price is probably going up. You should try to pick one up cheap while you can. That was number 10, Lost in Translation, an album that transports you to another world. Okay, number 11, we're at the halfway point. This one I'm calling Live at Budokan. So many artists from around the world who have come to Japan have played the legendary Budokan. And I learned that as part of their contract of coming to Japan, they would have to record and release a live record, which is why there are so many Live in Japan, Live at the Budokan records that are out there in the world. It was a condition of the contracts when bands came and played Japan. So for this one, you needn't show a record that is from the Budokan, but it should be a live record inspired by the Budokan. So show me a live record from your collection. I am going with 2009, Tom Waits' Glitter and Doom. Holy smokes. Now, Tom Waits has a handful of live records, Big Time most famously, which is also a movie. Nighthawks at the Diner is kind of a live album, but holy cow, this one is off the charts good. I have both the LP version and the CD version actually, and the CD version came with a book that I looked for everywhere and I could not find it. But it is a little book that is filled with little Tom Waits essays, which are, as you could imagine, odd, hilarious, beautiful, and uniquely Tom Waits. So the first disc on the CD actually has all of the songs from all 4 sides of the LP. And the second disc is nothing but stories and little patter between the songs that he played during the 2008 and 2009 tours. One of the shows she played at the Brady Theater in Tulsa, which I think has since become the Tulsa Theater, and they are absolutely hysterical. He talks about buying the last dying breath of Henry Ford in a Coke bottle on eBay, and about vultures and tractors and fried eggs. It's really funny. Disc 1 is all the songs, and disc 2 is Tom's Tales. And the name of the book that I think came with the CD is called Tom's Tales, and maybe it's the very stories that he read at tour to tour. I do recommend the LP version. Also, it's really good, but if you want to get those Tom Tales, I think you got to get the CD version. The opening track from this, Lucinda, Ain't Going Down, back into Lucinda, back into Going Down, back into Lucinda. So good. Such a killer way to kick off a live Tom Waits show. Just when you think the song can't get any more intense, he takes it to another level. It's so impressive. I was lucky enough to see Tom Waits during the Mule Variation tour, and it remains the best concert I've ever seen. When he came out on stage, he pulled a handkerchief out of his lapel pocket and glitter flew everywhere. He stamped on the stage everywhere he went and dust flew up. The drummer had this giant metal ring in front of his drum kit, and every time he pounded on it, clank, this smoke ring like evaporated into the theater. Tom Waits had a mirror ball hat at one point that he was wearing on his head, shaking, and it was like a dream. It was like, not only was it like an actual dream, it was like a dream come true. And I count my blessings that I got to see that show. The Paramount Theater, 2000, Mule Variations, killer Tom Waits record. I'm big in Japan, I'm big in Japan. A few more standout songs on this. Fannin Street, the definitive version of Fannin Street. You know Fannin Street from other albums, but you don't know this one. This one is the best one. I'll Shoot the Moon, this version is so much better. Green Grass, Make It Rain. Lucky Day. Glitter and Doom by Tom Waits. Now, you'll remember from number 3 on the Japan Vinyltag, ahead of its time, Tom Waits' Swordfish Trombones from 1983 got an honorable mention. It lost to Sgt. Pepper. In this Live at the Budokan, Tom Waits gets the honor, but I'm giving an honorable mention to the old Fab Four, the Beatles. This is actually a recording, a bootleg from their show at the Budokan. The Beatles Tokyo 66. This is like a proper bootleg. Now, this has probably been released on CD, and I think there's a video of it, and it's probably been played on the radio. You know, it's all over the place, but I have it on this funky bootleg with this funky label. It sounds pretty good. I would not pay a lot of money for this, but it was a fun little purchase. I got it for relatively cheap, and it's fun to have in the collection. I had some rock star friends who came to Japan some years ago who stayed at the now Imperial Hotel that I believe was called the Capitol Hotel in the 60s, and they stayed in the suite where the Beatles played, and I got to visit them one night when they stayed there, and so that was really cool. All this really wild like, mid-century furniture and little beautiful fixtures and really elegant suite. Very honored to see the space. They have a little museum in the front of the shop. I think they may have since torn the hotel down and built something new there. Don't quote me on that, but that's Tokyo for you. It just comes and goes. And the Budokan 66 shows are legendary. Part of the deal that Epstein arranged for them to come here was that they had to play a space that could hold at least 10,000 people. And the Budokan, which is a space for martial arts, judo, sumo, and such, wasn't a 100-year-old building. It was actually built for the '64 Olympics, but conservative Japanese people did not want the Beatles to deface the Budokan by playing there. And they were met with detractors at the airport who had signs that said, "Beatles go home," and things like this. Their handlers took them directly to the hotel where they weren't allowed to leave. They had to stay there. There's a really great story about them collaborating on this artwork for charity inside their hotel room. And they hosted countless interviews from their room. And there's a noteworthy quote from Paul McCartney where he says, "When Japanese artists come to Britain, we don't boycott them. You know, we've come here because we've been asked to play here." And over the course of a week, they played 5 shows, and no people were allowed to sit on the floor. Everybody had to sit in the stands at the stage, and the audience weren't allowed to stand. And it sounds very interesting. I should probably do a whole video on the Beatles' presence in Japan. It would probably make for a really great YouTube video. Note to self. Okay, that was number 11, live at Budokan. Show me a live record. Okay, moving along, number 12, vinyl bar. Japan is famous for these amazing, beautiful vinyl listening bars. These are exquisite places where very dedicated vinyl collectors and music lovers bring their love for music and spirits together and sip on whiskey in beautifully designed spaces where their patrons are invited to come and be quiet and listen to music as they enjoy a coffee or a cocktail. I've been to many of them and they're always fun, even if they've become a little bit of a novelty, but I invariably get shushed and it drives me a little bit up the wall. But I want you to imagine that you are a DJ at one of these supremely cool vinyl listening bars. What album are you going to play that is the perfect background music for intentional listening and quiet, sophisticated conversation? Vinyl bar DJ. I am going with dark and brooding, sophisticated jazz and blues vocalist Asakawa Maki. Asakawa Maki is a famous singer and composer who has a gorgeous, deep, brooding voice. She was deeply influenced by Mahalia Jackson and Billie Holiday. She sings both in English and in Japanese, and you cannot ignore her voice or the presence of her voice in a place like a jazz bar, which is what happened to me. A short story. I was in Bar Martha, one of the more famous jazz listening bars, where when you walk in, they say, "Have you been here before?" If you say, "No, this is my first time," then they tell you all the rules and that you need to be quiet and that there's no photos and you need to be mindful of other people and that this is a space for respecting the listening experience. Once you agree to those rules, then you can sit down. There's a table charge. It's a privilege to go into these places. And photos are very off limits. And Asakawa Maki got played on the beautiful, amazing house system. And I heard it and kind of recognized it and walked over to the DJ, who that night happened to be the owner. It's a rather popular place and the owner is not there all the time. He's got a legion of music aficionados who work the bar a lot. But on this night, he was there and he was spinning the music. And I said, "What is this?" And he said, "It's Asakawa Maki." I said, "Oh man, I love this." He said, "Yeah, Japanese blues singer from the 60s. She's great." And I said, "Oh yeah, she's awesome. I love this." And he pointed at the wall where the record was sitting up on the little shelf. And I said, "Oh, okay, cool." I got my phone phone out to take a picture of the record. Not of the bar, but of the record. And oh my God, I nearly got myself kicked out of the place. Not only did I get my head bitten off once and explain that no photos are allowed, and yes, I know that, and I should have known better. I wasn't, but you know, but I got called out on it, and I went back and apologized yet again. A few minutes later, like, hey man, I've lived here a long time. I've been here dozens of times. I know the rules. I just thought that apparently you don't know the rule. Okay, I'm sorry. So I really nearly outwore my welcome. I think it'll be okay if I go back, but that's how serious some of these listening bars are. But hey, respect, no judgment. I mean, that's what they're for. If I had a place like that and that was what I wanted to do, hey, like that's what makes Tokyo one of the coolest cities in the world. This is probably the album that I know the least. I recently just picked this up at the 2004 record and CD carnival at Asakusa, and I was looking around for the record. I asked this woman if she could help me find a Maki record. I couldn't remember her last name, and she said, you mean Asakawa Maki? And I said, I think so. And she said, from Ichikawa-ken? And I said, I think so. And Ichikawa-ken is a prefecture in Japan that was heavily hit by an earthquake on January 1st of this year and leveled a lot of the towns on the Noto Peninsula. And that woman said to me, I'm from Ishikawa, and I'm from the same place that Asakawa Maki's from. I said, oh wow, that's interesting. And the next thing you know, I'm like talking to her about the disaster, and my family and I were actually quite close to there on a New Year's holiday, and we felt the rattle of the earthquake and had a really nice conversation with this woman at the record fair, and she helped me track down this copy, really nice version. And it's not a hard record to find, and like I said, it's the newest to my collection. I don't really know her discography yet, but I like what I've heard so far, and she's a legend. She's collaborated with Yuichi Sakamoto and Yosuke Yamashita, and she's a huge legend. I should have known about her long before now, but I'm very happy to have started my Maki collection, and this is the first record of her discography. She started recording at US bases and at cabarets, and you know, that's how she got her start, and she's just remained supremely cool, connected to the sort of counterculture underworld, and you can tell she's just like Asakawa Maki. Vinyl bar. What record would you play at a vinyl bar? Number 13, I am calling this one Island Nation. Now, it's not easy to imagine when you're living in the big city that you're actually on an island. There's not a whole lot of island vibe in the big city of Tokyo. But if you get out into the sticks and into the boonies and along the coast and out of the urban areas and out to the beaches, life slows down a little bit. And if you've ever made it down to the southern and western islands of Kyushu and Okinawa, the pace of life is much slower there. And so this one is asking you to share a record from your collection that evokes an island vibe, a carefree, fun in the sun island vibe. And I am going with Kinna Shokichi and Champurus. Champuru means all mixed up. And Kinna Shokichi's band from Okinawa is called Champurus, which maybe means all mixed up and loose. This is a really unique record that fuses rock and roll with the traditional sound of Okinawa, the shamisen, the three-stringed snakeskin banjo, essentially. A really cool instrument with a really twangy sound, which evokes a real island vibe. It's a really cool sound, and it's got this upbeat that reggae music has. And Kinna Shokichi was a champion of bringing this music to Japanese pulp culture. I have witnessed with my own eyes the power of this music. I've seen my dear friend Bemsha put this record on at a DJ set and light the place on fire. Everybody got off their seats and was dancing to the high vibes of this great record, Champurus. This is him, Kinna Shokichi. I assume this is him and his Champurus bandmates. There's some great videos on YouTube that you can see of these guys. Everybody is really excited to be at the show. It's sort of like a cross between Bob Marley and Jimmy Buffett and Kabuki theater. You can't really just say this is like an ethnic record from Okinawa. It really is an innovative attempt to fuse Okinawa music and rock and roll music and really pioneer a whole new genre of music. Kinna Shokichi is well respected in Japan. His records are collected all over, not just well respected for being innovative musicians, but also because they are outspoken advocates of the plight of the Okinawa people. His shows can famously be political events and often talking about the trials and tribulations of living near the US bases, the complexities of that very prickly situation. So he's an outspoken proponent of getting the US out of Okinawa. The US's presence in Okinawa is not insignificant. There's problems with pollution, toxic pollution, and noise, and cultural insensitivity, and a lot of problems. And Kina Shokichi and Champurus are not shy about advocating for better circumstances for the Okinawa people. So some of his shows become a little too political for people in the audience. I once heard from my friend at Flash Disc Ranch that he attended one of his shows in the 80s and he got so tired of listening to him rant and rave about some political issue that he and his buddies left the show. But like I said, musically, this record's a good time. Very good time. Very high vibe, would be great for a beach party or really any party. Check this record out when you can. I'll leave his name in the show notes. There's no English on here, so it might be a little tricky to pull out. Great record. Okay, number 14, Monsoon Season. Rainy days call for special music. Share the perfect record to listen to during a downpour, whether it's soothing, introspective, or moody. Different kinds of rains call for different kinds of music, and it was a hard choice to make, and I got a couple of honorable mentions, but the honor goes to Ann Peebles. I Can't Stop the Rain. This is a killer album and a killer title track. This is the fourth album by the Memphis singer Ann Peebles. It's the only album that I know of hers. It's the only song, actually, that I know of hers, but it's a really great album and it's really groovy. There is an electronic raindrop sound that gives this song its kind of character. It was made with an electric timbale and really sets this interesting electronic click track through the record, and Ann Peebles sings this really laid back melody over it. It's really groovy. I would say this is a good rain record so long as you have two people in the house. This is a record that you might want to pass each other and do a little dance to in the house. This is a groovy record. It's danceable. It's not moody. It makes you want to get up and groove. So I would say that you need rain and at least two people to get the most out of Ann Peebles' Can't Stop the Rain. Great record. Honorable mention goes to Walter Wanderley for Rainforest. Da-da-dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun. This has to be a light rain. I would say a rainforesty rain for you to enjoy some samba, bossa nova style, rainforest drizzle, mist, rainforest mist rain. Gotta give an honorable mention to The Doors, Riders on the Storm. This was my go-to. It's on LA Woman. I don't own LA Woman, so I've just got the first release here. Need to get me a copy of LA Woman. Saw that Chad Chasm is doing a UHQR. I don't think there are any in Japan. Maybe you should send one to Japan, maybe. I mean, maybe there should be a UHQR LA Woman in Japan. Just one more honorable mention to Paperback Writer and When the Rain Comes. Picture sleeve Japanese single of Paperback Writer and Rain. This is getting expensive. That was number 14, Monsoon Season, album suitable for the rain. Okay, next up, Wabi-Sabi. Who knows what Wabi-Sabi is? Wabi-Sabi is the notion of finding beauty in imperfection. It's the ephemeral, fleeting beauty of the falling cherry blossoms. Yes, they're beautiful on the tree, but they're even more beautiful as they fall and die and the moment passes. If you see a perfect, beautiful ceramic teacup, dent in it, it's more beautiful by its imperfection. Kintsugi, the practice of putting together broken objects with little gold leaf. Imperfect things have their own beauty about them. So show me an album that, despite its imperfections, has a beauty about it that its imperfections actually add to its beauty. I am going really with anything from Neil Young, but I'm choosing Tonight's the Night. This is one of my favorite Neil Young records. It's one of these fuzzy, weird, almost velvety album covers, and it just is supremely cool. And it's just kind of lo-fi, grainy and gritty and imperfect in every way. God, don't you just love that? Oh, God, what a great photo. Tonight's the Night has so many great songs on it, and it is an album that is part of the Ditch trilogy. Neil Young, after the Harvest records, got so famous and so popular that he couldn't deal with it. He made 3 records that were in the spirit of what Neil Young has really become, which is just a big, I'll do whatever I want to do and you'll either like it or you won't sort of attitude. And oh God, it's so good. Sadly, Neil had lost 2 of his friends and bandmates right before this album came out. It's kind of a tribute to them. Danny Whitten and Bruce Berry was a working man. He used to love that Econoline van. Yeah, it's the cautionary tale of life in the fast lane. I think the story goes that one of them was so high that they couldn't play, and I think Neil fired them from the band, and tragically he lost his life the next day. And so I'm sure Neil was rattled by that because they probably love these guys. If you follow Neil and you know Crazy Horse and you know the kind of band of brothers that he keeps around, you know that it must have been a real tragedy. There is a really cool insert inside that talks about working with his friends. Please take my advice. It's got a picture of Tom Sawyer and Fast Car here and some of the anecdotes from the record. Cool poster of Neil. Man, great record. So Wabi-Sabi, the notion that there's beauty in imperfection. This album sounds like it's held together with chewing gum and shoestring, and some songs are louder than others, and you can hear what's going on in the back of the studio. There's like one-note guitar solos and harmonica misses. It has this song on it. I'm looking for it in my songbook here, but can't find it, called Borrowed Tune. I have records all over my piano, or I would try to play the piano, but I'll try on guitar. Though I'm not a good piano or guitar player, but I'm climbing this ladder, my head on the clouds, and I hope that it matters, but I'm having my doubts. And then the line that I really like is, I'm singing this borrowed tune that I took from the Rolling Stones. All alone in this empty room, too lazy to write my own. I mean, come on. Is that not like a bad song sung horribly, but so good? So good. That's what I'm talking about. Beauty in imperfection. Also, come on, baby, let's go downtown. Let's go downtown. Mellow My Mind is so good. And Albuquerque. Roll Another Number. Tonight's the Night. Ugh. It's just like such a bad album, and it's just so good. It just doesn't really get any better for Neil Young. And I want to give an honorable mention to Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots, it doesn't have anything to do with Neil Young, and they aren't really deserving of the Wabi-Sabi prize, but they do cover Down by the River. And I think Norah Jones is on guitar, and she plays a solo that is a one-note solo the whole time. It's da-na-na-na-na, and it's so good. It's so good. Go and listen to Puss in Boots album, and especially Down by the River from, what is this? From 2014. Oh, this is a great record. Also, should say that one of my favorite bands, the Flaming Lips, Wayne Coyne, got a lot of confidence from Neil Young. Wayne recognized that he wasn't a great singer, and he saw Neil Young doing it despite the fact that he wasn't a great singer, and it gave Wayne permission to become the amazing singer that we love him to be. Wayne Coyne of the Flaming Lips. Okay, number 16 is Origami Me. Japan is known for the art of paper folding, as well as their beautiful, intricate packaging. So show me a record in your collection that has intricate or detailed or particularly interesting packaging. I am going with a CD from Fish. Their 1999 6-disc box set, Hampton Comes Alive. A little riff on Frampton Comes Alive, where they played the Hampton Coliseum. Now, what is particularly special about this packaging is that it opens up on one side and it also opens up on the other side. And on the top side, there are 3 discs. And there's some detailing here. It's very elegant and nice. And there's a 6-part puzzle that you can put together. You can see the show dates. This is from a live concert. And on one side are 3 of the 6-piece puzzle of the Hampton Coliseum in the daytime. And on the other half are the nighttime. They all come together and create this cool image. On the front side, you have night 1, and on the back side, you have night 2. It also has the same 3 parts of the 6-piece puzzle, daytime and nighttime. And it's just a really elegant, simple design, and it has these very satisfying magnets on both sides. This is a really nice feature, a very cool little box set. I don't remember it being super expensive at the time, but I really cherish this. I actually have 2 copies. I have the car copy that I got when I was some 23 years old and played it to death and on every road trip that I went on. It's destroyed, and recently I got a really cheap, very nice, pristine copy of it again. I'm guessing the price is going to go way up. They're never going to make this box set again. It was actually nominated for a Grammy for Best Packaging. I can't remember if they won or they lost, but it was nominated for a Grammy. The closest Fish has ever come to winning an actual Grammy is for the packaging for Hampton Comes Alive. That is a perfect Fish gag. Hampton Comes Alive. That is the kind of joke that probably just entertained themselves, and they thought, oh, that would be hilarious if we named the record Hampton Comes Alive. So fishiness at its fishiest. Okay, number 17, Fusion Frenzy. Japan is known for blending cultural influences. They're known for blending everything. Share an album that mixes genres of styles in a way that creates something new and exciting. I am going with another CD, this time Ween, with 12 Golden Country Greats. Notice the parental advisory on this record. This is highly prized on vinyl, and I probably will never be able to afford one of these records, but this is a classic album by the eclectic rock duo of Dean and Gene Ween. For some inexplicable reason, in 1996, Ween decided to make a country record in Nashville with session musicians, notable session musicians, some of whom declined to play on this record for its blue material. This record sounds so good. This is a great country record that is filled with Ween booginish hilarity. There are so many killer songs on here, genuinely great songs. This is Nashville session recording at its finest. Why Ween decided to merge their crunchy, distorted acid rock with amazing Grammy grand old Opry level country music is lost on me, but I am so glad that they did, because this is one of their very best records. The songs on here, I'm Holding You, so sentimental good, like a Japanese cowboy, like a brother on skates. We've got Piss Up a Rope, you can feel the pissy dribble. I've got a 45 of it, a 7-inch with Piss Up a Rope on the B-side and You Were the Fool. Look at this picture sleeve hilarity. Like, what does it have to do with anything? I have no idea. Piss Up a Rope. Pack your bags, I don't need the ag. On your knees, you better Powder Blue is so good. That could, like, Dolly Parton could have sung that song. Mr. Richard Smoker, you're a pretty poker. Fluffy, You Were the Fool. You Were the Fool. Oh, that's what's on here. That's what the single is. You Were the Fool is such a good tune. It sounds like the best session players you've ever heard. It's so good. And it's Ween. Fusion, frenzy, merging, fuzzed out, eclectic, boognish. They took the studio sessions on tour as the Shit Creek Boys. Ween and the Shit Creek Boys. Give this a listen. And salute to Ween for doing a country record. Respect. Mad respect. Okay, number 18. I'm calling this one Tokyo Nights. Tokyo's nightlife is legendary, with neon lights, bustling streets, and vibrant energy. Share a record that embodies the essence of nightlife. Possibly some overlap with another subject, but I am going with 2013 masterpiece from the French duo Daft Punk. Random Access Memories. What a killer record. Oh, God. I have Discovery and Homework and a lot of the other records, but I love this one. This one is so good. They're all great, but I just never tire of this one. It is so solid from beginning to end. This is my out on the city, riding on the motorcycle, video game, futuristic, Blade Runner, Tron soundtrack. And what makes this record really amazing is that it's actually a departure, not at first glance, but it is from their earlier works in that it's primarily made with instruments and not computers. Did you know that? There is a song on here called Marauder by Giorgio Moroder, who talks about going to discos in Berlin and using the Moog synthesizer to create a sound of the future and using the click to modulate and create the entire, basically, genre of disco music. It's so killer. And of course, the standout single on here is Get Lucky, sung by Pharrell. Nigel Rodgers is also all over this record. And my favorite track on here might be Instant Crush with Julian Casablancas from The Strokes. I love Julian Casablancas' voice. To hear him on Random Access Memories is a real treat. I think that Daft Punk was probably impressed with Julian Casablancas' first solo record, Phases for the Young, and his collaboration with them probably influenced his work on The Voids. You can get a sense that there's some Random Access Memories perhaps in this record. I was really lucky to see Daft Punk in Tokyo a long time ago, and they were amazing. Even though they have broken up, I'm going to keep listening to their music for many, many years to come. Number 18, nightlife music. What's your nightlife music? Tokyo Nights. That's what I call that category. Okay, number 19. I'm calling this one End of the Day. After a long day of working zangyo, or overtime in Japan, as the salarymen are prone to do, after going to the obligatory client drinks and yakitori, followed by the necktie around the head, karaoke session, and finally the drunken last train home, what is the album that you put on at the very end of the day? I am going with a record from Tomita. Tomita is sort of the synthesizer prelude to Daft Punk. I don't know much about him, but he is the very accomplished and celebrated organ and synthesizer player who takes well-known masterpieces and redoes them in crazy, lush, amazing synthesizer soundscapes. And this one is called The Newest Sound of Debussy, Clair de Lune. This is one of my favorite Debussy pieces, and he does it in this very tranquil synthesizer version. It's so pretty and soft and quiet and a great way to just end the day. I love Tomita. He's got a bunch of really wild records. He's got the Firebird Suite. He's got the Planets one. But this one is really good. I think I got this in a dollar bin. Tomita can be the butt of people's jokes, but I respect and love Tomita. I like so many of his records and his sound. Something like a cross between Enya and YMO, okay? Something like that. I think you can't go wrong with any Tomita record, but this one is really my favorite. If you're a fan of Debussy and you maybe learned this piece on piano, check this one out, Claire de Lune, and more pieces from Debussy. I don't know all of them. Arabesque, Claire de Lune, The Girl with the Flaxen Hair. I don't know them all, but you'll recognize them once you hear them. Great composition, great arrangements, a really fun listen. Tomita. Okay, we've reached the end of the line and the end of the day, actually. And we are here at number 20, the final entry in the Japan vinyl tag. Thank you for making it all the way here. I'm calling this one The Last Samurai. Inspired by the noble spirit of the samurai, I invite you to choose an album from your collection that you would like played at your funeral. An album to go out on. Many rivers to cross. Even though this is the Japan vinyl tag, as they might say, you can take the boy out of America, but you can't take the America out of the boy. I am going with the Grateful Dead's American Beauty from 1970. One of, if not their best, most classic, most beloved, arguably their only great studio record. Along with Working Man's. So many great songs on here. Box of Rain, Friend of the Devil, Sugar Magnolia, Operator, Can You Help Me? Help me if you please. Candyman. I saw the Dead a number of times with Jerry, and I saw them in Memphis. Tennessee, Tennessee, ain't no place I'd rather be. Baby, won't you carry me back to Tennessee at the Pyramid on the Mississippi River. Oh my God. I thought the place was going to collapse. It was such a high vibe, but there was a moment in Candyman. Won't you tell everybody you meet that the Candyman's in town? Jerry held up his hand. The entire audience was just locked on this amazing human. It was an incredible moment I will never forget in all my life. Yeah, the Dead. If you saw the Dead, you probably know. I got lucky a couple of times. I can't remember really there being a bad one, but I was really lucky, particularly in Memphis. Then you've got on the side B, Ripple, Till the Morning Comes, Addicts of My Life, Truckin', and for the sole inclusion of the song, the most bittersweet, beautiful, passing on to the other side song, Broke Down Palace. Listen to the river sing sweet songs to rock my soul. This has to be the song that you play at my funeral. There's a lot of other ones I invite you to play, but please, I'm gonna take American Beauty for my own. I think I read that Robert Hunter wrote Ripple, Broke Down Palace, and like Death Don't Have No Mercy in like an hour when they were in Europe in '72. Man, amazing poet, amazing songwriter, amazing lyricist. For the Grateful Dead. I have so many of their albums, but this one's a cool one. One more cool one. Check out this bootleg. You ever seen this one before? Look at this picture. I've never seen this one before. I'm gonna do a video about this one someday, so be on the lookout for that. Isn't that awesome? Look at these punks. Okay, folks, 20 years in Japan. What a long, strange trip it's been. Thank you for indulging me in what might be the first ever Japan vinyl tag. I invite you to make a video. Don't feel obliged to, but I just wanted to do this to commemorate my own time here and to just have something to look back on at this moment in time. So thank you, Japan, for having me here for so long. And thank you to the life you've given me, filled with beautiful family and friends and home over my head and beautiful, fun city that I love to poke around in, and music galore. So, and thank all of you for connecting with Tokyo Record Style. And I've gotten a lot of encouraging words lately, and I really appreciate that. So I'm really thankful for that. And I invite you, if you want to, check the show notes. I'll leave a list up of the Japan Vinyltag. And if you're interested in it, it is a tall ask, but by all means, go for it if you'd like. You probably have a thing or two to teach me about Japan. I mean, that's why I'm here. It's just endless discovery. It actually never ever ends. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's an onion that you just keep peeling up, an endless puzzle, an infinite game. From Brian here at Tokyo Record Style, thanks again, and hope to see you on the next video. Like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and thank you. Okay, happy 20 years in Tokyo to me. Until next time, I will see you at the record store. Bye.